Coming in at number 5, Under the Bridge. This video comes to us from Kiev, Ukraine, after a man stood on the side of the road filming the passing cars. However, he gets a nasty shock when he pans over to a large pedestrian bridge. Under the bridge, you can clearly see a creature suspended upside down and crawling under the bridge. Now, you may be thinking that it must be human attached to some ropes, but no, when you zoom in on the creature, it is very clearly not human. The figure instead seems to have very long arms and effortlessly moves under the bridge at quick speeds. Now, there are certainly no apes or monkeys in the Kiev area, so what exactly could this creature be? Or do you think this could be a man who has developed the skills to scale upside down using just his hands and feet? For some reason, a lot of the creatures on our list appear to look like the Rake, a creature we will touch on later down the line. Stay tuned. Coming in at number 4, Something in the Trees. This clip was posted by a farmer in India who was supposedly out at night searching for some missing sheep. Now, using his night vision camera, he doesn't find the missing sheep, but he finds something else, something far more sinister and terrifying. The man walks around for a little while, showing mostly the ground while hunting for his flock. However, suddenly he slows his movements, stops and pans the camera up, revealing something in the trees in the distance, swaying side to side ever so slightly. The man is of course terrified and begins panting and running away. The creature in the tree looked angry, perched, almost ready to attack in a way. All I can say is, if this video is real, those sheep aren't coming back. To me, this looks like another variation of the Rake, a creature we will touch on yet again later down the line. Coming in at number 3, we have Gremlins. A CCTV camera caught this bizarre incident in a bar in Singapore after hours. In the evening, the video seems to show 3 men in the bar, one clearing up behind the bar while the 2 others are seated on some stools. However, things begin to get a little weird when one of the stools next to the men begins to sway on its own accord. Now, it is clear that there is no outside force at play here, with the men not even being aware that the chair is moving until it sways hard enough to fall back and hit the ground. The men are of course shocked and perplexed as to how it magically fell over on its own, but as this is happening, something can be seen running out from a different room in the back. It appears to be small and entirely white and runs past the men and through the bar. Though it is the size of a toddler, maybe smaller, the creature doesn't appear to run like a child and moves way too fast and with purpose. Not to mention, it is doubtful that the staff would allow a child to run around the bar at 3 AM. So, saying that, what exactly is this creature? Well, some people on the web are saying that both a ghost and a gremlin were involved in the bar incident. That's quite the team up. A gremlin is of course a folkloric mischievous creature that causes malfunctions in aircraft and other machinery, so they say. Depictions of the creatures vary, but they are often described as animals with spiky backs, large strange eyes and small clawed frames that feature sharp teeth. Now, we are unable to see from the video if that was the case. I'm going to assume not. So, what do you guys think? Coming in at number 2, we have the Hellhound. Now, this creature first appeared on the TV series Mountain Monsters in Pike County, Kentucky. Now, some backstory to begin. A hellhound is a supernatural dog in folklore that has often been described as mangled with black fur, its glowing red eyes, super strength and speed, ghostly or phantom characteristics, and foul odor. Certain European legends state that if someone stares into a hellhound's eyes 3 times or more, that person will surely die. It is also noted as being around 7 feet long and between 400 to 500 pounds. Jumping forward in time, the guys on Mountain Monsters began receiving some reports of a potential hellhound lurking in the Pike County area and lingering on some farms. So they went to take a look.
Like I said, I heard that sound. This is as far as I was willing to go. You could tell I was scared.
At around 30 seconds, you can see the hellhound emerge from a shed, and it truly looks as massive as they described it. It also seems to have a hump in its spine, making it appear even bigger. After investigating the scene and rewatching the video, the guys estimated the creature to be around 4 to 5 feet tall and 7 feet long, which is absolutely terrifying. What do you guys think though? The hellhound of Pike County or something far less sinister and more explainable?
Definitely had fear in your heart. Absolutely.
Wow.
Whoa.
Damn. He was right there.
That's right.
He was close.
And finally, coming in at number 1, we have You Believe Is Up to You Though.
Coming in at number 5, we have Dagon. Dagon is a deity of an amphibious humanoid race that resides in Earth's oceans. He is first introduced in Lovecraft's short story simply titled Dagon, and is mentioned numerous times throughout the Cthulhu mythos universe. Also known as Father Dagon, as he is considered one of the Great Old Ones. The story follows a tortured, lost-at-sea addict who is an escaped prisoner of war from the Germans in the Pacific. He escapes on a lifeboat and drifts aimlessly until he eventually finds himself stranded on a slimy purgatory black island, which is putrid with carcasses of decaying fish, nasty stinky mud, and slimy mold. His theory was that this area was formerly a portion of the ocean floor that had risen to the surface by volcanic activity and tsunami-like waves. Days of walking, he reaches the edge of the canyon, a gigantic white stone, a smooth monolith that's covered in unfamiliar hieroglyphs consisting of fishes, eels, octopuses, crustaceans, whales, crude sculptures of men with webbed hands and webbed feet, flabby lips, glassy bulging eyes. Sounds like aliens to me. Dagon then appears from the water, and the mariner departs quickly in fear, paddling away from the island before being rescued by a US Navy ship. Lovecraft seems to be referring to the ancient Sumerian god named Dagon, who is the fertility god of grain and fish in the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god. He resembles the carving and legend like the Sumerian deity, depicted as being part fish, part man, seen wearing a fish on his head. That's pretty creepy. Number 4, Night Gaunts. The concept of night gaunts first came to Lovecraft as a young boy in a series of recurring nightmares, which they would whirl him through space at a sickening rate of speed. In his dreams, of course. Lovecraft credited the illustrations based off of inspirations from Gustave Doré, who drew everything from angels to demons in the Bible. Gothic, winged, and demonic, alright. Shocking and uncouth. Jet black with smooth, oily whale-like skin. Long, sharp horns that curved inward towards each other. Giant, silent bat wings flap, chewed claws, and a barbed spiny tail. And worst of all, these creatures never spoke or laughed or smiled, and this is because there was only smooth skin where the face should be. It's terrifying. These faceless night gaunts have a vaguely human shape as well. Their skin is slick and rubbery. They can fly using a set of membranous wings and poke and stab with their tail, tickling and torturing their victims. Tickling? Quote, out of the crypt they crawl, I cannot tell, but every night I see the rubbery things, black, horned, and slender, with membranous wings. They come in legions on the north winds, swell, with obscene clutch that titillates and stings, snatching me off monstrous voyages to grey worlds hidden deep within my nightmares well. Okay. Poetic. Yeah, that sounds terrifying, dude. This guy was definitely suffering from either night terrors or alien abductions. I don't know, what do you think? Number 3, Ron-Tuggoth. From Lovecraft's The Horror in the Museum, Ron-Tuggoth is the great old one of hibernation, immortality, and ruin. Ancient texts agree that when Ron-Tuggoth awakens, the end of times shall be upon us. 3 million years ago, during the Pliocene epoch, it inhabited an era of Alaska before going into a hibernation-like trance. He was the last god to sleep and probably meant to be the first to wake. The god is shaped like an enormous insect, kind of like an aquatic arthropod with a barrel-shaped trunk with 6 appendages all ending in claw-like pincers. Subtle. He has a circular head covered with hair-like filaments or feelers, tentacle probes, and 3 small eyes. He weighs 20,000 pounds at 10 feet with legs more than 20 feet long. The story follows the relationship of Stephen Jones and George Rogers, the owner of a wax museum specializing in the grotesque and a weary guest. Jones mocks Rogers, then comes to suspect that he is demented and obsessed with these stories of rites and sacrifices to this nameless ancient god. Jones stays the night at the museum where he's attacked by the host and then sacrificed to Ron Tagoth, resulting in more statues within the museum. Terrifying. Ron Tagoth influences human minds and compels them to perform increasingly violent sacrifices in front of him. Sometimes humans have been known to temporarily awake Ron Tagoth from hibernation with certain chance, but always end up being devoured by the beast. Hey, we better pray that this LiDAR technology really doesn't get going. They eventually scan Antarctica and the Arctic under all that ice and snow? Who knows what we're gonna find sleeping down there. Number 2, Yig. The story of Yig begins long before this story was written. Yig, the father of serpents, is a semi-anthropomorphic great old one, that's a mouthful, who was worshipped as a god in Central America and the southern United States. From Guatemala to Oklahoma, Yig is seen as the ancestor of the almighty Quetzalcoatl and Kukulkan of the Aztecs in central Mexico. And now, the story. In 1889, upon arriving in Oklahoma, a couple learn about a local legend surrounding a snake god called Yig, which takes vengeance on anyone who kills a serpent by either killing them or turning them into a half-snake monster in place of the deceased. Eye for an eye. The husband of the researchers has an intense fear of snakes, and his wife, knowing this, kills a nest of rattlesnakes at one of their campsites. It's a great way to summon this guy. Yig is human size, hairless, and around the shoulders is speckled and brownish with a snake skin. His head is flat like an amphibian with piercing cold black eyes. Unlike most of the great old ones, Yig is seen as rarely malicious, and although he enters a feeding frenzy from August to October, the Pawnee, Wichita, and Caddo of Oklahoma drum constantly during those months to drive him away. The husband is horrified by the thought that Yig is going to take vengeance and insists on practicing the rituals from the First Nations people to keep Yig away. During the middle of the night, in fear, the woman kills her own husband in the dark, paranoid, thinking he's the monster. She's then taken to an asylum and dies there, but not before giving birth to 4 half-serpent hybrid creatures. Spooky! I was going to say, this guy doesn't seem that bad. He's only malicious if you threaten or hurt his serpents. Kind of resembles Charizard a little bit. I mean, the Medusa children, very horrifying, but other than that, he's not a bad guy. And coming in at the number 1 spot, Cthulhu. This number 1 spot goes to who I think is the most terrifying. Not only is she younger and stronger than the king of all kings of monsters, she's known as the Kraken, or the Secret One. She is the spawn offspring of Cthulhu and Idya. She's kind of like the biggest deal. She's the daughter of Cthulhu and is essential to his great plan for the entire universe, as should he somehow die, Cthulhu will give birth to him once again while assuming her father's role as the Great One. As such, she is guarded by the Deep Ones below the ocean in what might be assumed to be the ancient city of Relay. She was first born from the star Zoth, but landed in Earth's oceans atop her father when they crashed here. Also called the Secret One because the cult tried to hide all information about the goddess, most famously by defacing the columns of Geth, as her legend was recorded steadily in Greek myths such as Skylla. Yeah, that's her. Her father, Cthulhu, is a cosmic entity, first introduced in Lovecraft's short story in 1928. The Lovecraft mythos gives birth to this modern abysmal horror. Cthulhu is the youngest of Cthulhu and his partner Idya, and therefore the most frightening. Cthulhu is destined to give birth to the next great Cthulhu again, after he is destroyed in the near prophesized future. Project X was a secret and failed attempt to kill Cthulhu with a subterranean atomic missile, but it was no match for this gigantic red-bodied, 6-eyed octopus with wings. Yeah, she's able to alter her body proportions at will, such as enlarging her wings to fly or even swim. She has 8 arms like any octopus, so not only is she impenetrable from any of Earth's deterrents, she has the ability to camouflage anywhere. See what I mean? She's literally the scariest.
Alright, kicking off the list at number 5, we have Banshee, the Irish Banshee. Scream like a banshee, there's a line you've probably heard in movies or songs, but what the hell is a Banshee anyways? I've never been to a zoo and then seen a Banshee before. It's not something I've done. It's actually a reference to the woman of the fairies. Irish folklore says that if you hear this woman scream, that means a family member is going to die. What a harsh and gruesome warning. The Irish Banshee is said to live in the forest, but she still is connected to you. Okay, so the scream, her scream, can be heard from very far away. So yeah, it's a warning, a terrifying warning that's pretty loud. You're not gonna miss it. It's said that each family has their own Banshee, which is the interesting part. She has a different appearance for each family, so there's not one specific look for her. I mean, some accounts report her to be super tall and lanky, like moi, where other reports have been between, 1 to 4 feet. And the wardrobe, super fitting for the tale. She sometimes rocks the gray cloak over the green dress, and other times she goes out in all white with the red hair. She will warn you of a death by screaming. This is important. But most of the time, it's said that she only appears with the descendants of the pure Milesian stock of Ireland. So surnames that prefix with O and Mac. What about MC? Is that close enough? Like Mick, Mac, O? Am I cool? Am I good? Like in X-Men First Class, the movie, we see one of the main characters named Banshee, and their powers are screaming really loud. So even in our popular culture today, this legend has still managed to stay afloat. What about you guys? Does anybody out there have their own Banshee that they want to talk about or share stories? Is your last name dangerously close to it like mine, McWaters? Let us know down below. And before we continue with our list, guys, if you haven't already, please give us a spooky thumbs up because it helps us pay the bills for our electrical chairs in the basement here, So thanks. Anyways, back to European folklore. Coming in at number 4, we have the Basilisk. Originating from Europe and North Africa, the Basilisk is a hybrid between a rooster and a lizard. How fun. It was born from an egg laid by a rooster and incubated by a toad. It's kind of like Jurassic Park, but more fun, more terrifying, I don't know, depends. But it didn't always take that shape exactly. So early accounts of the basilisk say that it started off as a small crowned snake and would simply kill by using its poison and evil gaze. Of course, you can't forget the gaze. And it even leaves a trail of venom, as if that wasn't enough. So you know where not to go, rather. In Christian mythology, the basilisk represents hell, yet some places it represents power. Like it became the symbol of the Swiss city Basel. It's believed to be the most poisonous creature ever, and apparently once it was killed by a spear from somebody on a horse, and the venom was so strong that it flowed up through the spear and killed the man and the horse. Not the horse? Come on, guys. Even the herbs around it died because the air was tainted of poison. And if there's a well near it, that water becomes poisoned forever. I mean, there's nothing a little crystal light can't fix though, right? Sip water, you're like, no, this one's tainted for sure. And then it became known as this large hybrid creature with a loud roar.
Do the roar.
You don't want anything. How about one of those famous Shrek roars?
Do the roar.
And of course, it's known to breathe fire. Another common interpretation is that the basilisk from Harry Potter. So in Chamber of Secrets, we see Harry fight the basilisk, and it takes on the appearance of a very, very large snake. Greek mythology always has the coolest stuff. Damn. It also appeared in the 2016 film Gods of Egypt.
And how do you know they have a weak spot?
I don't, but they must, right?
In a much less exciting cinematic way than Harry Potter, I'd say. And coming in at number 3, we have the Gengar. Making its origins in Norway and Denmark, there have been many different depictions of the Gengar, of course. Always so many depictions. The most popular being that of a spirit or ghost of the recently deceased. Now, that just sounds like any ghost in general, right? But what makes the Gengar stand out is that its name translates to against or towards, and also a footwalker. So the name itself also implies to walking after death. People who committed suicide were usually the ones who came back as a Gengar. Or perhaps before they passed away, there was something else that they had to do in order to be at peace, so they went back to do that. Whatever the case may be, the Gengar usually needs assistance from somebody in the living world. Now that's where things get a bit spookier. See, in Scandinavian tradition, the Gengar isn't a malicious or evil entity, just a spirit that comes back to say, what's up, how you guys doing? How's dinner? Are you still cooking? Nah, awesome. When it disappears. Whereas other traditions, it's like a violent thing. You didn't want a loved one coming back in this form. It was malicious. Relatives actually went the extra mile to make sure that your grave was properly sealed to avoid this, or else you would get the dead man's pinch. Now the dead man's pinch, no, it's not a Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and it sounds pretty scary, but you don't want to be on the receiving end of the dead man's pinch. It happens when you're asleep, because when you wake up, your skin would be blue and sunken, you know? Usually being attacked in your sleep means that you shouldn't be resting near a certain area. So maybe you're too close to a graveyard or too close to like these mountains. I mean, just throw a sign up, that works too. You don't have to pinch or bite any of us. So this undead zombie vampire combo would also break into your homes to spread disease. How fun. 6 feet apart, guys, come on, read the thing. Wear masks, space out. The tradition of the Gengar traces back to the early Viking ages as well, believe it or not. They're present in many of the Icelandic sagas, such as the saga of Eric the Red, taking the form of a mortal creature, and then Grendir is also said to have slayed the Gengar with his sword. Cool, it's always fun when you slay one of those. And number 2, the Liko. Heading over to explore some Slavic folklore where the Liko is otherwise known as the embodiment of all evil and misfortune. Now, if that doesn't sound horrible enough, their appearance is sure to get you. She's described as being an old lady dressed in all black, but she has one eye that peers out. And it's haunting looking, very. It's also known as a male that resembles a goblin, so either way, they're both not that fun. My personal favorite tale of the Liko is that some said it's taller than trees, like it's a cyclops almost, which is great. So what's the point of the Liko? Why the late night strolls bestowing bad fortune? Well, the Liko, and I'll keep saying Liko because I can't read, the Liko is known to be the servant of death. So during pre-Christian times, villages would conduct these rituals during times of epidemic, and a female-like idol would be built to be used as kindle to ignite a sacrificial fire. They thought, hey, if we destroy a version of it in the fire, then the epidemic would be dispelled. Then, of course, later on, it was linked to bad luck and death. The Liko is said to stalk its victims by perching on a fence or in a tree, just watching you from afar. And in many fairy tales, it's said that the Liko would jump onto your back and have its hands on you so tightly that even if you flailed around, it wouldn't let go. And while it was biting your neck, people would try and run into a body of water, hoping that it would drown, or at least let go. I mean, come on. And that wasn't the case. This was often the cause of their untimely death. See, the Liko doesn't cause their victim to drown, but death is usually the result of the victim trying to get rid of it. So it makes it look like it's your fault in a way. There is a tale of a blacksmith who encountered the Liko and made a pretty wild deal. So as the Liko was preparing to eat the blacksmith, he offers to craft anything the creature wants. So, of course, she asks for another eye, a new eye. The blacksmith insisted that the Liko be strapped down during this, because if she moved while the eye was being hammered in, it just wouldn't work out, right? It would make it worse, if anything. So once she was strapped down, the blacksmith took a red hot poker and jabbed her other eye out. That's crazy. That's like some Bruce Willis stuff right there. The blacksmith escaped by pretending to be a sheep, so the Liko didn't notice him when all the sheep had left the shed. Gotta love those handy sheepskin coats laying around. And coming in at number 1, Fear-Liath, the big gray man, and no, I don't mean Gandalf. Also known as Fear-Liath more, this one comes from Scottish mythology, and it's probably one that you've heard of in one way or another. It's known as a possible guardian of another dimension. Coming in at superhuman size, its dreadful presence can cause suicidal thoughts. The big gray man of Ben Macdui is said to be a distant cousin or somehow related to Bigfoot. That's why they look so big and hairy and similar. As they share similar appearances, of course, the mountain Ben Macdu is home to this fantastic beast that you don't want to find. Many glimpses of the Fear-Liath have been stated that it's blurry, kind of like how all the photo evidence we have of Bigfoot is blurry itself. Many believe the cameras simply just weren't good enough to capture a clear image, but the blurry feature is said to be part of its ghostly nature. See, it's this tall, sinister, blurry gray creature. Science argues the existence of the Fear-Liath, saying that the appearances of the creature are simply an illusion caused by atmospheric conditions atop high mountains, where the shadows of somebody can be cast far away and look like this large giant phantom. So this ape creature has also been beloved to the missing link in our evolution. People think this is like the half man, half ape right in the middle thing. What do you guys think? The shadow of death itself, or just the shadow of Fred the mountain hiker? Which one? One of the common feelings you get when being in the presence of Fear-Liath is dread and panic. Now, many believe that this happens when you're climbing a mountain and there's not enough oxygen getting to your brain. That plus the anxieties of being on a mountain thousands of feet in the air, your brain will play tricks on you. But some tales are too convincing. One of the earliest sightings took place back in 1890 by John Norman Crawly, a respected scientist and explorer who was walking in cairngorms, and a heavy mist appeared as he arrived atop of Ben McDooey Mountain. This fog reduced his visibility, and he didn't talk about his experience for 35 years. That's a long time to keep a secret. That's wild. He heard footsteps behind him crunching that didn't match his own walking pace. And then he described this creature that he saw. It was large with broad shoulders, over 10 feet tall, with long waving arms. He also said it had an olive-like complexion, or rather covered in short brown hair. But in majority of these cases, the creature is only heard or sensed. So if you're thinking of grabbing a Polaroid and hitting the slopes, you won't be too lucky.
Starting the list off at number 5, the Migo. No, I'm not talking about the rap trio Migos. I'm talking about an ancient half-wasp, half-lobster that H.P. Lovecraft concocted up in the 1920s in the Lovecraftian mythos. From their first appearance in Lovecraft's 1931 The Whisperer in Darkness, the Migo are huge, pinkish, fungus crustacean-like creatures the size of me. Yeah, these things are massive. From planet Yuggoth, or Pluto as we named it, they arrived on Earth during the Jurassic period. After fighting off attacks from the Elder Things that had landed here, the Migo eventually hid in the northern hemisphere. These creatures prefer to be left alone and in remote mountain ranges. Today they inhabit the Andes, Himalayas, and Appalachians. These creatures prefer to be left alone. They possess a pair of bat-like wings which are used to fly through the fabric of space. The wings don't fly here on Earth as well in our atmosphere, but they're capable of going into a sleep-like state, floating in space until softened and reheated by the sun or another star. The Migo transport humans from Earth to Pluto and back again by removing the subject's living brain and placing it into a brain cylinder where they fly it home for research. I'm sorry, a what? Their technology is extremely advanced to the point that members of the species will casually engage in surgery for relatively trivial reasons, such as adjusting their own vocal organs to become capable of speaking to humans. An elite ancient race, the Migo communicate by telepathy, and their research surrounding the human brain is still unknown. Hold on. So Migo, which translates to Yeti, lives in the mountains, evidence of giant wasp crab hybrids and fossils. They abduct humans and bring them back to Earth only for research purposes. Yeah, these are aliens. These are aliens, everyone. God, I hope not. And number 4, Nodens. Nodens, aka the Hunter, aka Lord of the Great Abyss, is one of the elder gods in the Cthulhu mythos, first appearing in Lovecraft's The Strange High House in a Mist. A god of journeys and endeavors, Nodens appears as an old man with long white hair and a beard, yet massive, strong, and powerful. He often rides in a chariot formed from a huge seashell, pulled by numerous different types of sea monsters. Nodens is served by the night gaunts. These gothic, rubbery, black, faceless gargoyles terrorize the dream world. In Lovecraft's novella The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, Nodens is seen as an archaic god served by the night gaunts, and he's depicted as somewhat benevolent, opposing some of Lovecraft's titanous creatures. He mostly hunts down evil creatures in the dreamlands that may get out and terrorize humans. He prefers to hunt the servants of the great old ones because they're usually more intelligent and offer the best sport, but not an act to protect humans necessarily. He has, however, been known to help humans time to time. Quote, "And upon dolphins' backs was balanced a vast crenulate shell, wherein rode the grey and awful form of primal Nodens, Lord of the Great Abyss." I'm just gonna say it. Yeah, this guy's Poseidon, right? I mean, the really old but really powerful thing, the god of the sea, helping humans but not really helping humans. Safe to say that this guy's either Ariel's father or a merman. Come on, he's even got a trident. Number 3, Bullcrug. Bullcrug is the lake-dwelling god of the semi-amphibian Thuma people, or voiceless ones, of Ib in the land of Mnar. The strange creatures known as the Thuma descended from the moon along with their city of Ib to come to rest on the edge of a great lake in the land of Mar. These are like half frog, half people kind of creatures. Seem to be a kind race as well. There, they lived in peace for many centuries until men came to colonize Mar. The men in search of precious metals looked at the Thuma and hated them because of their differences and perceived weaknesses. This hatred festered until finally the men sent their warriors to kill all of the Thuma. In a single day of slaughter, the poor creatures were wiped out entirely and their city destroyed. The lizard deity slept beneath the calm waters of the lake until the humans of Sarnath cruelly slaughtered the population of Ib and stole the god's effigy. The deity stirred from its rest and swam to the surface, and let's just say he was pissed. Whether Bullcrug had come to replace the men with his own worshippers or transformed them into Thuma for revenge is still unclear, but the end result was the same. Hybrids. After the destruction of the men in their city, the deities slithered back down to the depths of the thick black lake where it rests to this day. Every year the Thuma people pray and sacrifice to the deity as the waters of the surface become stirred and choppy. I just saw a video the other day of people hand feeding the lake so that the monsters don't end up getting hungry and ravenously eating the town. Yeah, is this a thing? Apparently cities that border water do this a lot. I don't know. Number 2, Mother Hydra. A colossal deep one. Mother Hydra is an enormous humanoid creature with a fish-like face, flapping gills, and slippery scaly skin. She, alongside Father Dagon and Great Cthulhu himself, form the holy trinity of the Deep Ones, all being gods of the aquatic race. Hydra and her partner Dagon have been entrusted by Cthulhu with the guardianship of his daughter Cthyla, if anything should happen to him. His daughter, aka the Kraken, is a power not to be messed with. First appearing in Lovecraft's The Shadow over Innsmouth, Mother Hydra was one of the Foundation's targets during Project X in 1980. The operation's plan was to destroy these aquatic gods using atomic weapons, though unsuccessful as she was able to escape the destruction of the Deep One's city along with Dagon and Cthyla. Lovecraft describes the Deep Ones as a race of undersea dwelling humanoids whose preferred habitat is the bed of the ocean. I would describe them as an 8-story Pirates of the Caribbean antagonist. However, despite being primarily marine creatures, they can surface and survive on land for extended periods of time. Ah, isn't that lovely? And terrifying. Though tied to the ocean, tied. All Deep Ones are immortal. They don't die, except by accident or violence. And they don't grow old either, and they can grow to a massive size. How would one of these things die by accident? Almost every major culture throughout history that resides by a sea has talked about a massive creature with numerous tentacles and heads. She is seen in many forms from sea snakes to mermaids. Either way, what do you think? I think this is the same Hydra that the Romans, the Greeks, the Celts have been talking about for thousands of years. What about you? And coming in at our number 1 spot, Spiders of Leng. I chose this next Lovecraftian creature for the number 1 spot due to my own abysmal fear of spiders. Yeah, I said it. I'm scared of spiders, okay? Arachnophobia alert in 5 seconds. The Spiders of Leng, or Leng spiders as they're sometimes known, are sentient cannibalistic creatures which appear in H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, first appearing in the dream quest of unknown Kadath. In ancient times, these spiders controlled the entire plateau of Leng in Earth's dreamlands, until defeat in the Long War with the Men of Leng. These things were almost hunted to extinction and had to retreat to the southern mountains where they live in their nests. There they dwell to this day, ready to prey on any creature foolish enough to venture through the cavernous mountain range. These purple reddish arachnids appear somewhat similar to terrestrial earth spiders, yet of course on a much larger scale. I feel like all these creatures are just much scarier when they're like 150 feet high. For example, the smaller spiders of Leng are the size of a Great Dane dog. Yeah, that's too big. That's way too big. And larger and older Leng spiders, of course, could tower over an elephant. Yeah, I'm done. No, I'm done. Thank you. If that's not the scariest part, they have an intelligence far higher than that of a regular animal. Imagine elephant-sized spiders trucking to a city near you. I'm calling Oppenheimer, man. They are carnivores and even trap and indulge in cannibalism of other spiders. Finally, some good news. Eat them all up. They are capable of spitting city-sized webs to disembowel their victims. They also possess a venomous bite that paralyzes their next meal, and of course they have the ability to climb literally any surface. Of course they can, yeah. See why this is the number 1 spot? If I saw a Godzilla-sized kraken or a 5-story spider, yeah, I'm going for a swim, that's all I'm saying.